How's it going, YouTube? Coming today with another video, and today, guys, what the bring to you is going to be the second episode of Season 2 of the podcast. I'm very excited because I'm joined by so many people here, so definitely go ahead and just start around the circle and introduce yourself.
I'm Calebdotexe, acclaimed Twitter shit poster and runner of Millennium Threads.
Hi, I'm Darth Nash 6, better known as the guy who builds terrible decks and brings them to YCSs. If you like dual terminal decks, then I'm the guy that you want to watch because I am the goofiest.
Hi, I'm Jess Guile. Right now, I'm just the guy that's running around the West Coast playing Math Mech and trying to tear everything up.
Hi, it's Andrew. I'm GrimYGO. You also might know me from Luxury or Dueling Guard, but happy to be here.
I'm so glad that you all joined me today because we just had a lot that happened over the weekend. Got to spend it with a lot of very cool people, but now we are back to the computers and we can actually start making videos on this, so it's very exciting too. Banlist went crazy. Banlist had a lot of cards on it, so we're going to talk about a lot of that today, so I hope that you're all excited for that. If you haven't already checked out my sponsors over at Imperium Duels, Gems, Sleeve Chief, or Dragon Shield, check them all out down in the description below. Without further ado, let's hop right into our first topic. The first thing I want to talk about is going to be, what is everyone's favorite card? I always try to ask this every time I get new guests on the podcast, just so everyone kind of knows a little bit more about you.
I got it right here. I played this at the YCS this weekend. Relinquished is just such a goofy card. It's so bad, but there's nothing quite like actually hard summoning a Relinquished, stealing your opponent's monster, and then making anima and stealing another one. The amount of times that someone looked at my deck and lost their mind because I was playing a card that came out in Spell Ruler was incredible. And so that alone, the shock factor makes Relinquish probably my favorite card.
I am pulling it out of my dual terminal collection right now, but my favorite card is by far GGYGO. Love this card so much. It's what brought me to day 2 of a YCS, and for that, I will always love it more than members of my own family.
Well, I don't have mine relatively close. I was looking. It's not circular. Format. I played a lot of birds, so I put this on my feature match thing all the time. My favorite card is Leerless Turquoise Warbler.
Yeah, that card's kind of crazy, so that card does way too much.
Yeah, I think my favorite card is Colossus, just because that was one of my favorite combo decks to play. Also playing the Dino Thunder / Snow Brilliant Fusion deck and all those other type of Thunder Drag decks. So definitely miss that card.
Yeah, mine's Droplet. I really like to just tell people they can't respond. It's just one of those cool things where you're just like, yeah, so I'm going to activate this burner. Oh, you negated it. Cool, chain Droplet. It's now the 3rd spell engraved, so I'm going to pop that back row. You know, it's all good. Droplet's a very cool card, very non-interactive, my favorite. But beside that, I always love doing this little bit just to make sure that everyone knows what everyone's favorite card is, so you know a little bit more about them, learn a little bit of history, especially like Dirax going to day 2. That's pretty base. So pretty cool. But moving into some of the ban list discussion here, one of the cards that came off of this was Draco Face-Off. Now, talking about our favorite ban list changes, so a little bit of GG lore. Draco Face-Off was one of the cards that I used when I couldn't beat somebody at my locals. I tried forever to find a deck list that I could actually use to be successful, because at the time, I was still very bad at the game. But I just knew that Pendulum at the moment was broken. And this was around Bosch, so it was a really good time for Pendulum. I put together this Draco, Dino Mist, Draco Face-Off deck, and I went undefeated. I was so happy. I was like, this is my deck. We're bringing this to a regional. It's gonna be a great time. The next day, the ban list came out and slaughtered it. And I was like, wow, that sucked. But now we finally get it back to 3. So maybe this is the time, but this is my favorite change on the ban list, especially now there's a lot more Draco Slayers to choose from, so I might pick that deck up just to play it, because this would be a lot of fun.
I think my favorite, it does not matter in the slightest, but I love Recital too. So 3 Recital does not matter. I've never once put 3 Recital in my deck. It does not change a single fact, but 3 is great. I mean, next step, they can bring some more back too, and I'd be hard chill then.
I have 2 favorite cards that are different spots of the ban list. Blaster Dragon Ruler of Infernos to 1. I am so excited that there's another Dragon Ruler back, specifically because it's Blaster. I really, really like fire decks. Maybe not as much as Pain likes fire decks, but like Drac, Laval, Flamevel, I love them so much, and Blaster just adds more spot removal and adds a big body on board that helps facilitate bigger synchro summons for those decks. So I've always had a soft spot for Blaster. The second one is Gen X Ally Birdman. I love that that card's off the ban list. There's so many janky things that you can do, and I love coming up with janky combos. The YCS, I was talking with Danny, Luke Von Karma, about fun things that you can do with it. Like the new Manadium deck, there's some people cooking with Reborn Tengu, and since Reborn Tengu is searchable off of Fire Formation Tenki, and it's a wind, so you can bounce it back to your hand with Gen X Ally Birdman to special summon another Reborn Tengu. Also, Kashtira Unicorn is it's a wind, so if you've got any way to get to Unicorn with a Birdman in hand, that's a full cash combo with a Brawn.
I hate Diablosis so much. I'm so glad that that card's dead. It feels awful to play against. And I also have a second favorite card, Runic Fountain to 2. I'm a Runic player. You should only be playing 2 Fountain. Thank you for enforcing good deck building, Konami.
My favorite banlist change was probably it was kind of weird. It was good, but it was bad at the same time. They kind of like neutered the backup decks, which obviously is how they reset the format. But I think Denglong was maybe my favorite, just because I didn't really get to play in that format with like Zephyra and Dino being able to do like Denglong combos. So it's kind of cool to see what you're able to do with the deck now. And obviously, the best deck to do Denglong combos is Sorcel. So I guess that was one of my favorite changes. Also, Engage coming to 2 helped with consistency a lot.
Yeah, I was definitely there for the Drac Alo plays into Denglong, and it was something. It was definitely something. But now we're gonna see what we can do. What is the best deck post the ban list? And this is something that's very subjective because we don't really know. But I think that everyone's best guess right now is probably Cash. I would say that it definitely has a bunch of the cards that are still going to be really crazy. Maybe like a Kashtira Control, like some Floodgates and an Arise Heart. We'll have to see, but it's probably still just Cash.
I think the problem is I feel like we're going to go back to like how Nats was last summer, where like there wasn't like a best deck and there was like a million things you could play, which is good but bad at the same time, because like obviously it makes planning for everything you're going to see harder, but like it makes it so you can play whatever you want, so that's always fun.
I feel like in formats like that, you see back row decks do really well. Like whenever there's like a resetting of a format, Eldritch crops up. So I feel like Labyrinth is positioned really well to do that exact same thing, because people will be expecting combo decks, they'll be expecting those other types that are potentially hand trappable, and then they just won't be able to handle back row. So I think that Labyrinth is positioned really, really well to maybe not be the best deck, but be the best deck of the decks that are currently good.
I think that Kashtira is a really strong contender, but I don't think that it's the best. It's in this way, it's the new. It still has Dryden with Macro as its main boss monster, even though there's only one. But this is a really, really hot take that I think not enough people are talking about at all. I think Rika Sun Avalon is by far and away the best deck that nobody is playing. Any deck that can combo off with like any one of its monsters so easily, and most of its combos, like its interactions with the opponent is tributing your opponent's monsters for cost. We've seen Jessica in UK. She's been tearing up all the tournaments over there with that. It's a deck that can play through every single hand trap except Droll. And yes, Gamma is gone now, effectively, but you can still play 3 crossout designators in your Rika deck.
Yeah, shout out Sunsu Jess. Absolutely doing phenomenal. Top 4 at Nats. That's crazy. The deck is so good. Rika is definitely in a really interesting position right now where a lot of people still don't know what the deck does. So that's definitely a huge edge. But even if you do, it still can be pretty complicated to play through.
I think the way Konami did the ban list was that there is no best deck. Everything's kind of neutered in a way. I think the people that played Cashier before kind of don't want to play the deck now, but also at the same time, the format's very mid, I feel like, from testing. the past, or what is today? Tuesday? Whatever time I got home on Monday, I literally just played on DB until like 3 a.m. yesterday, and there really is no best deck. But Rika is in a really good position. Mostly combo decks are in a decent position. Sword Soul's okay. Striker's pretty mid. Branded, like they're all kind of in the same place where like any deck could beat the other deck depending on their hands. So yeah, I mean, other than that, it's basically Nats all over again, or May 2022 format.
So we're talking about a whole lot of decks that are just really solid because you have so many to pick from. But how about a deck that's really good as a sleeper pick? Now, these are always going to be the decks that are just beneath all the other ones that we really expect to do well. One that I think has really flown under the radar is Draco Slayer. I brought this up earlier. I really do think that it can do well. I've seen it do well at regionals. I've seen it do well at events. Never really caught its wave, but I think now it might have a better chance as a sleeper pick. But this would be mine. What is all of yours?
You already know. I think Makonko is such a good sleeper pick. I think that people just don't know what it does, and the amount of players during the weekend where I'd get my Makonko board set up, they're like, "That does what? I just can't out this. Like I don't have an in deck way to easily out untargetable, can't be destroyed by card effect like board like the way that I could set up." And then snatch steal, snatch steal, snatch steal. Like it's people don't know how to play against it. I think that it has a lot that it can do. I think that it can definitely steal wins and perform well.
Yeah, in the OCG, there was actually a list. I know the OCG and TCG are very different, but there was a list that did top over there, which was pretty cool. I've been hearing a lot of people talk about like the engine. I don't really know if we're gonna see a whole lot of it until we start seeing like the new Infernoble support, but it's definitely really cool.
Joe Bogley topped the YCS Philly with Eldridge, and I sat next to him for one of the games, and it's like kind of funny how like that deck can still cook people. I think just like auto floodgates plus the Golden Lord package can do a lot coming next format. Also, I think people forgot about the Adventure branded Eldritch deck, and I think like that deck itself can do a lot. Especially, I think the branded variant decks are still going to play Dragoons and stuff.
I also think that if somebody is able to get the ratios correct, the Gold Pride Punk deck, if you can make, like, because we saw in this similar format around this time last year, Pack pairing up the meta scene with his pure Punk deck. Pride adds a form of interruption to Punk that so few decks play around with. The fact that Pinballer hits the field and then equips up to 3 of your opponent's monsters to it is such a niche kind of interaction that I can't think of any deck that has a way to at that kind of interaction is so cool. There just needs to be somebody who, like I said, gets the ratios down with that deck to make it consistent enough. There was a 60-card pile version that did make top 32 at Philly over the weekend. I don't know if that's exactly best way to play it, but it's something that I want to cook with. I feel like it could perform really, really well.
You don't know any other deck that equips monsters to them?
Isn't there that Mikonko deck that does that by any chance? I don't.
Relinquished. Let's go.
No, it's crazy because I love playing piles, and that guy, like, I took a couple ideas from that guy, like when I played, because I played a big old punk pile with the 250th, and I took some of his ideas too. I think the scariest thing moving forward for me playing like more than 40 cards in my deck is like every time I play 60, I slap Gamma in it because it protects everything. I don't think I can ever play 60 cards again with 1 Gamma in it. Because no one respects Gamma, so it makes it better in 60, but it's hard. For this next format, though, I don't have like anything specific that I think's like a sleeper. I think people are gonna sleep on the things that got hit. I think that's the problem, is that people aren't gonna continue to respect things like purely super heavy cash and even like Math Mech when I think they're all still playable in a portion. I think they're all gonna move into like a different way to play them. But I think it's all still playable, and I don't think people are going to exactly respect that still. I don't think we'll see like super heavy pure as crazy anymore, but like that as like a 10 card engine just in a lot of things, as like I've seen from the OCG, is like very good.
Yeah, I feel like everybody is like, this week they're finally getting their super heavy samurai deck that they ordered. And so I don't think that they're gonna. Yes, it's cheap, so it's not so much of a sunk cost. I feel like they're not gonna give up on it easily. They're gonna be like, no, I have the cards. I know that this deck can be played as an engine, so 100% Kyle. They're not gonna give up on the super heavy samurai deck. I feel like that deck's with the Scarecrow hit. People are gonna be messing around with that to see what they can do. Like, we've seen Tombox from MST.TV. He's not giving up. Like, he's sticking to his guns.
I've been like tinkering on a little bit with it a little bit. In Adamantipator, it's like decent because you can like search Soul Claw off of the Bankai to like start your plays. If you have to, you can either Soul Claw or Gaia, and they both start your plays. Or like if you already have rock cards, you can like make Denglong in Adamantipator to protect your board, because you can search Soul Horns into level 1, so it makes Denglong without your normal summon, and then you just keep playing. But also, there's in the OCG they've been playing it with Valence, that like weird archetype no one touches. But it's like it's just very hard to play. But I've like tried to tinker around with it. It lets you set up your yeah. It lets you set up your
No one touches Valence.
like makes it cool. Like you can own like a fossil diner that they can't kill, and like a negate and like an Apo. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I've actually heard some people talk about Valence here and there, and I'm like, I don't know. I have the whole deck sitting like in this bulk drawer underneath me right now. So we'll see. Maybe one day. It's something that is, if it's like $1 for the whole deck, right? You probably just buy it just because the day that it becomes relevant, like, okay, Guru was printed, Circular was printed. Like, these cards can and will be printed. Martha, like, they have the ability to do so. So I mean, like, let's just hope it's for Ogdoadic, but. We'll have to see.
Don't we know that Valence is getting support in the future? Isn't that already been confirmed through like the some of the lore books or whatever?
I mean, I would imagine it's still relatively new, so like the option for more support is probably going to come pretty soon. Talking about cards off the ban list and cool things that you can do with them, we have one in particular, Yangzing, called Denglong. It's a level 5 tuner. It's pretty crazy. Do we think that it is cope or it's good? Do we not know yet, or do we think that it has potential?
I played with it pretty much all day yesterday, well, I played Striker as well, but there's like 3 different combo lines for Sword Soul to do it, and basically Vessel is one that just synergizes with the deck already, so it's a really easy way to do the Shitana Idhara line. To start with Denglong, some issues I do see with the Denglong line starting first is possibly Nibiru, but for another route you can do in Sword Soul is you can go Lonyon Pitch, make Barone, and if you have a line for Taye in Emergence, you can make Yazi, and then you make Mermer, and then you do basically Mermer Denglong line, Taye dump is Shuna, and then the really cool thing that people kind of like don't think about with Denglong too, it can dump any worm and also become that level, and it is a tuner. So there are really cool lines where if you start with the Vessel line, any normal summon that could potentially get hit with Imperm or anything like that, you can still go into like a Cheese Out or other route as well. But that was another way. And also Idhara on its own, being able to special, and then a 4 making Denglong. But basically Denglong by itself can be off the tuner options, but I really didn't like playing the level 3. But the Chi-Wen allows you to, even if you do draw it, you can pitch it and still special it when you destroy with Boxia. So you're still able to do a Cheofang route. So basically the end board goal is Pillars, Blackout, Evil Longyon, Cheese Out, and basically the Cheofang, which also is going to help you get Ash or another possible hand trap.
I think dinos are eating good. All the new dino support that's coming out, a lot of it is not good. I'll be the first to say a lot of the dino support cope, but some of the dino support is wonderful. This is going to sound crazy, but the fact that you use Aolo for the Denglong lines, and the fact that One of the new dino support is a level 6 fire tuner with 200 defense. It means that rekindling plays are now open. I know. So you can do a like Dino Manadium. I've been seeing these lists going around. And so being able to do a Dino Synchro Turbo deck is very easy. Denglong was a key part of the searchable Solemn Judgment combo back during True Draco Zoo format. And now that Denglong's back, honestly, the only thing that's missing is VFD for that deck to be believable. That deck can still search out Lithosagem easily enough. The deck can bring out Trishula easily enough. You add in this new level 6, you add Aolo's back, you add Denglong back. Dino's going to be crazy.
Yeah, and it's crazy now too because there's an argument to be made. You don't even have to play Aolo anymore because you have Raptor and Animadorn, so you can like combo with those too. So that like your deck is just like engine that you don't care if you like draw or not. And it's I was talking a little bit with my friend. I like the concept of dinos as like a whole. I'm just so scared to not play so many going second cards, but I'm hoping we go into an area where we don't have to.
It's one of those things where if we have 3 Miscellaneousaurus and we have like everything for the deck, then maybe. But like right now, you have to play like 3 Small World and really try to get to the Miscellaneous before you combo. There's a lot of things about it that I think are probably fine, but it's just like if I was gonna play Dino, right, I probably would just end up playing Sword Soul anyway, like Andrew was saying for like the Denglong lines, just because I feel like that deck is a lot more consistent as far as like what it can do first or second. So far, I have not seen anything with Denglong that's been like, oh my god, this is crazy. But like maybe it'll be fun. I put it in my video today as kind of like maybe it'll do something, maybe it won't. But I'm not really sold on it being like super wild yet.
I think too, it'll depend on how when Battles of Legend comes out because we don't have Assault Synchron yet, and there's so many adventure like Brave, Apple Dragon, Assault Synchro decks that like get turned on as soon as that comes out. So it's like seeing if Denglong also fits into those pieces will like change how the deck is looking because Assault Synchron's crazy, and if you can make it like a 5 easily in that deck too, it might make it worth it.
I think the when that stuff comes out, it could be really good for Denglong, but also at the same time, if any of us remember the Tenny Adventure / Sword Soul pile, I think basically Denglong being able to dump Ashuna into the adventure line, and since you control the right token, you can summon Shatana and then do more Yang Zing lines with the Denglong afterwards, and then Denglong can also summon another Yang Zing from your deck. So it would still be very Sword Soul heavy, obviously, because it locks you into worms with the Ashuna line, but depending, it could be a potential option.
Did these hits need to happen? Now, this is something that I've been talking with a lot of people about because this is definitely a hot topic right now. But Scarecrow, Delicious. Now, I definitely understand pre-hitting a deck whenever you find it to be a problem. And if you have one hand trap against super heavy, unless you also have a board breaker, you're probably dying. So that was always kind of not great. Hitting Delicious seemed harsh. That was definitely a rough one because getting to Delicious now is like nearly impossible without super RNG. Using Pearly's effect over and over, or like end phase equipped to like a beauty from the field spell, and then trying not to die through the turn, which I mean probably makes the deck like a more going second heavy focused, which I don't really think is that bad either. It's probably fine, but I don't really know if they needed to happen. Maybe they could have hit something else in Pearly, not to like outright destroy it, but like Scarecrow, the deck can get around without it. It's a lot more fragile, but like I think maybe Scarecrow is a lot more warranted than Delicious.
For me, I think the hits were necessary, but not now. Like, not this ban list, but the next ban list. Like, if this happened 3 months from now, I'd be like, oh, yeah, absolutely. The only people that have played these decks are the people who have been able to go to tournaments past 2 weekends, and that's it. So, yeah, I like it kind of like how on Master Duel, they've been preemptively hitting a lot of decks. I feel like this was almost unfair to a lot of the player base. You know, these people like spent money to get a hold of these cards, and then boom, these decks were hit. I'm glad these combo decks that I'm not really gonna have to worry about as much. I'm also sad for the people who were like excited to play them. I feel like it was just kind of mean spirited, honestly.
On one hand, I think that pre-hits can be good because it's like, you know, obviously we know that these decks will be good and could be a problem. And I mean, I got washed by a handful of super heavies this weekend, both in tournament and just like playing casually. But I definitely agree that there just wasn't enough time for people to actually play these decks. It doesn't matter if, you know, like how good they are. I think like Tier had its time in the sun before it was hit, and a deck that is objectively worse than Tier had less time to be good and be played.
Part of me thinks too is like Konami it's like a teetering act. Like it's hard to like let one thing go while you're hitting the other things, because I don't think they wanted another format of just something overtaking. Like I think they wanted to move back into this like very open-ended format that I think we're moving into. I do not think that some of these hits needed to happen exactly right now, but like I do kind of see why they did happen, because like without hitting one thing, you're hitting one thing but leaving one thing unchecked. It's like a weird checks and balance system.
To be honest, with like the super heavy hit, I think I only played the deck for 2 weeks, but I also like invested a lot of time, and the deck just it's literally tier 2 / unplayable. You sneeze at the deck, it loses. Like that's why Earth Machine is rarely ever top the deck. Obviously, I think Earth Machine itself is a better potential deck than obviously the super heavy deck, but they kind of like put it to the point where like it can't really play through much. Soul Piercer on its own could play through 2 hand traps, but it was only because of Scarecrow. So the new routes now, which there is still a 1-card combo with Biker Prodigy, but you basically need your Peacemaker to resolve, or your Soul Piercer to resolve to even do the combo. If they stop you at all at that point, you just have like a level 8 Synchro, which I forgot its name, but it summons the Pendulum back from the extra deck.
Entertainment.
Yeah, that guy. But yeah, so it's in a very bad position. But yeah, also it's like a $10 deck, so like I don't know if they want a deck to reign supreme that's worth $10. So I don't know, but a lot of people enjoyed the deck. I think a lot of people were upset just because they probably only tested the deck for maybe 2 to 3 weeks. At least that's as much time as I spent on that deck. But at the same time, that deck had issues like all the other decks in the format, and obviously with the ban list, the deck kind of sucks. So,
well, you look at the flip side. That might be a $10 deck, but people spend $1,000 on Pearly.
hey, that's true. I did pay like 600 on like 7 or something boxes, and it took that many boxes to pull 3 prodigies.
The last question I have for everyone, and this is always a really fun question, just because I really want to know like what it is about a deck that makes it seem so overbearing. Because we see a deck like Super Heavy Samurai, which was a great point brought up earlier, that is miles below Tier, just getting hammered immediately, where Tier actually lived for a while. Like what makes a deck tier 0? Like what makes it so unbearable to play against that is just like the craziest deck? Is it the extenders, the grind game, the ability to open up explosive hands? Like what is it about a deck that really puts it up?
To be honest, I don't know if it has to be a tier 0 deck that makes most people play it. I think it's just therapeutic to have like a deck that has resource management, grind game, and a higher ceiling than most of the other decks in the format. So I think that's why we decided on picking them. But yeah, the deck was not meant to be in the format. It's not valued. I think Tyroman survived longer just because it fit the lore with Kashtira and semi visas. I believe there might be other semi archetypes in that lore, but I think it survived longer just because they weren't finished printing the lore for that deck.
I think what makes a deck tier 0 is its flexibility. If a deck is able to kind of warp itself in any situation to fit any situation and still pop off, that makes it like a quote-unquote tier 0 deck. Or maybe like the sense that, oh, it has over a 60% representation at a high scale level tournament, but the fact that it can play through 2 to 3 hand traps and still give you the end board that you desire. You know how in like, I guess since so many people love Demon Slayer, you know, in ongoing anime, in the previous season there was the one demon that she like turned her body into ribbons and they couldn't cut the ribbons. Decks like that's like a tier 0 deck, you know, like you're doing all this stuff, but you're not doing anything to it, you know? The hand gestures were necessary for that explanation.
We're looking at something like a tier 0 deck too. I think there's like this like checklist of things we're looking at to like see if these decks hit them. And I think it's, besides like obviously like looking at the numbers and like representation and stuff, I think when a deck just hits every single box and there's not really a box it doesn't cross off, there's no reason for it not to reach that status. Because like if you look at like other tier 0 decks of their time, so we have like tier, we have like, I don't know, like Spiral, or there's a whole bunch of things, but like they all had that like factor to them where like if you just looked at each of the boxes it just crossed off everything, and then they were just like, there were just points where like nothing you could do would matter because they're just going to keep going.
For me, at least, when it comes to making a deck tier 0 and like what entails for tier 0, because I've been a part of almost all of them, it definitely is just one of those decks that can go first or second extremely well. I think that's something that really does go like above and beyond, is like if you don't care if you lose the die roll. I think that's definitely like the mindset from a deck that like you are in a tier 0 format, because especially if you're playing tier, like you literally did not care if you lost die roll, it was fine. If you're even against like the mirror match, like some things were unfortunate, but it's like actually just okay. I think it's the deck that probably can abuse the best cards in the game the best. And I think that's, for me at least, what makes a deck tier 0, is if you look at every single good card in the game at the moment and you're like, listen, this deck breaks every single one of them, it's probably in a tier 0 format.
I think that my background is in a lot more like alt formats, and I think what I've seen from that I think about tier limit where I see parallels is decks that can just play through everything and then say, now you have to play through my everything. It's like you used 5 interruptions, I now have 5 more interruptions, and I was able to play through all of yours. And so I have, you know, every way to prevent you from playing, and you have to top deck the thing to play. Just being able to play through so much interruption and then set up your own interruption, that to me is an immediate tell, like, yeah, that's a tier 0 deck.
I really do enjoy that kind of a discussion too, just because with the way the game is going, I feel like we're seeing a lot of like mid format, all tier 2 decks, tier 0 format, and then we're back to like mid, tier 0, mid, you know. It's just like, there's not really a time that we've ever really had that triangle format like we had back in TOS, which a lot of people still say, you know, like there was still 5 that you could have played, but like realistically it was still like Orcus, Thunder, Striker, like those were the decks that you were playing. There was like Saladin and whatnot, but like still the triangle was a lot of fun, but we have not seen a format like that in a long time. So it's always very interesting to see like how the formats go and like what we can expect to see, because you kind of know when you're about to enter one of those formats pretty quickly. Like you start seeing the cards, like we saw, well, I mean, even with tier, it took everyone a minute to be like, wow, these cards are better. But I feel like after the first like event or two, everyone started reading tier cards and they're like, listen, this deck's going to be better. So it was definitely really interesting, but I really hope that we do get some kind of like triangle format soon, at least, because I personally like tier 0 formats, but the triangle format is the closest we'll like get to that for a little while, I'm assuming.
I'm with you. I like deck building in a tier 0 format significantly more because I know of one main deck that I need to build against. And as somebody who is, you know, known to be primarily a rogue player, it's so much easier for me because all I need to do is I need to build my main deck around the tier 0 threat and then my side deck around the other decks that are revolving around that tier 0 threat. Very varied formats like this I love because everything and anything gets a chance to shine, but deck building is a nightmare. 15 cards in the side deck and anywhere from 3 to 12 slots in your main deck is just not enough with 4,600 different decks that I can face. So like deck building, love tier 0. As a player, it's it's fun because I know how to beat the threat.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's definitely awful playing against like 50 decks, and you're like, well, now I got to make the whole deck ready to go. But usually, like your top five, you can build around those, and then you have to make like concessions that you might lose to like a very specific matchup, which did happen to me at a regional. I played no back row out, and I was like, I won't play against any back row decks this whole event. I played against one. You know when I lost this game from? That deck. So it was what it was. But when there's so many different decks, there's just like not a whole lot that you can do. Especially like you gotta just understand what like your primary matchups are and just build for it. Any final thoughts on the day?
Evil Swarm Cash, best variant of the deck.
Cooking.
Ophion Sweep.
Ophion Sweep.
Well, I appreciate each and every one of you for joining me today. It's been a great time, another great discussion. Going on to the next few episodes of the podcast, we're going to keep on just improving upon what's going to happen in the format and what we're seeing and exactly what we can expect later on as we approach Nat season. We're already in there, but like our Nats is not for a little while, so like we still have a lot of time to prepare. But I hope that everyone has a wonderful day. And if you haven't already checked out any of their socials, I'll leave them all down below in the description. So definitely go ahead and check that out as well. And hope that everyone has a great one. We'll check you later.